little bit about our speaker today, Danielle DiLeo Kim. As an architect and urban designer, Danielle is uniquely able to translate the skills she uses in capital and planning projects to any strategic challenge. She seeks out challenging initiatives and opportunities that will strengthen urban communities. As an innovative leader, Danielle excels at coordinating multidisciplinary teams and engaging diverse stakeholders. Through her vision and leadership, she consistently identifies opportunities to leverage existing resources and relationships to exceed a project's potential. Danielle strives to create a more equitable and sustainable urban environment. She is a consummate community advocate and passionately puts her whole self into every endeavor. Danielle is currently serving as the Executive Director of Philadelphia 250, an organization planning Philadelphia's role in the 250th anniversary of American independence in 2026. And without further ado, Danielle, it's all yours.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all virtually. I'm going to share my screen and then I will get started. Thank you for that introduction. So today's my birthday. It's my 49th birthday, to be exact, which feels monumental because it feels like the end is approaching and that I'm like hanging on to the precipice of my 40s, but barely. And next year's milestone is particularly terrifying because 50 is definitely monumental. So the description and the that Alan just read was really moving and touching. And when I started this talk, I wanted to think about, okay, well, what is the real definition of monumental? The easy thing to do is, of course, to go to the source and kind of look at that. And when I was reading this, I highlighted just a few of the things because I'm going to touch upon the word monument a number of times throughout this talk and in different ways. I'm going to cover quite a bit during this conversation. So hopefully all of these points will be addressed as we go through. Hold on, I'm trying to figure out how to advance this. Okay, there we go. Like all of you on this call, I'm sure, I love Philadelphia. I'm sure many of you do as well. I'm an architect and an urban designer, as you've heard, and I've built my career here in Philadelphia. I am a transplant to Philly. I grew up in the Lehigh Valley, but have been here since undergrad. Truly love it. I'm married. I've got 2 kids. We live in Fairmount. It's a pleasure to live and work and serve in this city. I also really love to draw and paint, which is what originally brought me to architecture to begin with. I also really like to travel. As you can see, some of these images are actually from 2019, right before the pandemic shut everything down and there wouldn't be a whole lot of traveling. And you can see these sketches are all of like cities. Like I've always been fascinated by cities and understanding how architecture and culture and place really inform and capture the spirit of a particular place in built form. And architecture, because of its very being, as Alan was saying, has a monumentality about it, right? It's permanent. You're creating something that ideally is lasting for decades, generations, in some cases, hundreds of years. Good architecture that's responsive to place, culture, and a community can really bring significant meaning to a place. Built environment is shaped by landscape, it's shaped by topography, and also buildings, monuments, transportation infrastructure, riverways, all of that forms the environment in which we live. Of course, architecture and monuments are designed and built by humans, and therefore they are inherently flawed as well, of course. The projects that you see on the screen here are a sample of some of the projects that I've worked on as an architect and urban designer in Philadelphia for the last really over 20 years. Architects are fascinated by systems. They like to think about how things go together, from the detailing of this, screen that you can see on the Mann Center building with the light coming through and how to make that happen, and how to detail this standing seam stainless steel roof, to systems of, well, how do you put together a waterfront master plan? Or what should a master plan be for something that's going to happen 20 years into the future when you can really only understand a few things? That stuff has always interested me. And, I became an urban designer because I was always interested in like bigger questions about systems, and started working on projects that were less about buildings and more about why should there be buildings, and what should the future of our city be. So really trying to think at a much more monumental scale. Cities are inherently monumental, right? They have the density of them, the infrastructure, the amount of investment that goes into them. Cities are the drivers of economic and intellectual engines of countries all over the world. We know this to be true. And in Philadelphia, I love this photo because talk about monumentality. And the basic building block in Philadelphia is the row home, right? It's this residential typology, is monumental in its monotony and consistency. And it generally makes for a fairly democratic way to live, in the fact that we, if you live in a row home, those of us who do, we all live in a fairly similar brick box, with varying degrees of perhaps numbers of floors or details or opulence or safety and the condition of where those houses might be. And much of that is based on the neighborhoods in which you live, right? As we know, as many of us know, Philadelphia is the biggest poorest city in the country. 25% of our population lives below the poverty level. That's 400,000 people, which is equivalent to the population of Atlanta or Miami. The magnitude of that inequity is monumental. So what are we going to do about it, right? Well, before we answer that, let's go back in history to talk about some things that happened nearly 250 years ago. Sorry, I keep losing my cursor. Here we go. So nearly 250 years ago was a time of great political and social unrest, as we know, right? Citizens felt marginalized. They faced violations of their basic rights. There was a great divide among the people with strong emotions on both sides. Sounds familiar, right? I could be describing what's going on in America today, which you can see on the right, but it also describes the challenging and tumultuous times that were going on in colonial America, when passionate and engaged citizens ignited a movement that led to the drafting of our country's world-changing founding document, the Declaration of Independence, in July of 1776. The 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration happens in July 2026. And let me make it very clear that the white men who drafted and signed the Declaration were massively flawed in their morals. Many people were at that time. And yet these ordinary citizens were extraordinary in their audacity and courage. Their actions at this time in history, given their standing as royal subjects, were monumental. And now the 250th anniversary of those activities and that revolution is a monumental opportunity for Philadelphia to once again seize the moment and become personally invested in a civic movement, to turn your passions about the injustices and things that you want to see changed into action that will have lasting impact. So 2026 in Philadelphia, just like the rest of the country, will be recognizing the 250th anniversary of American independence. For Philadelphia, we will be playing an incredibly central role as the primary host city in 2026 for some national events that will happen here. We know that there's going to be an increased level of global tourism. We know that there's going to be economic impact from that. And in today's world, the media and the social media attention that comes from weeks and months of activity will be tremendous for Philadelphia's exposure. At the same time, the organization that I'm running is completely rooted in making sure that the experience and the activities leading up to 2026 are rooted in Philadelphia, Philadelphians, right? The diversity of our people, the diversity of their lived experience, the histories, not the history, but the histories and the untold histories of everyone. And then ideally our capacity to really create change together through legacy building. Our role, Philadelphia 250, is to serve as the coordinating entity for Philadelphia in 2026. That means that we are essentially responsible for coordinating with a whole range of partners. Alan was talking about that, like, I've done a lot of stakeholder engagement in my past experiences, and it's true. So we're looking at, like, how are we going to engage Philadelphians, up through working with major museums that we know will be putting on exhibits, working with tourism agencies to drive visitors to Philadelphia, and then even coordinating with the state and the federal government as they start to think about what activities should happen in Philadelphia and how we, are going to work with them on that. Our approach at Philadelphia 250 is to make sure 2026 is a people-powered, meaning it's a community-informed, grassroots approach that is citywide and really rooted in the neighborhoods. Philadelphia 250 is working on kind of 3 signature platform areas around civic engagement, inclusive storytelling, and leaving a legacy. And our ultimate goal as a city collectively is to leverage 2026 as an opportunity to create the most inclusive and transformational anniversary in American history. That's a monumental goal. And we can really reach that only through doing it with others, right? Because to go far, as many of us have heard, and to do monumental things, you have to go together. And in Philadelphia, that's going to start at a block level. All of us know that Philadelphia is known as a city of neighborhoods. And for 2026 to truly be a by the people, for all people commemoration, and that's the tagline of our organization, it needs to be rooted in the neighborhoods all across the city. Our neighborhood citywide approach is meant to help drive audiences to places beyond traditional historic districts or historic sites that you might expect, and really highlight the diversity of American history as it takes place in Philadelphia. So for the whole year of 2026, and we imagine this being a year of commemoration, the city will ideally be buzzing from the grassroots level, from stoops to stadiums. So we're going to be working and inviting ideas for people to put forth programming, so that there will be heritage and cultural festivals, that we will have walking tours, there'll be volunteer opportunities across the city. We imagine there will also just be celebratory opportunities like block parties. We have this idea about having stoop floats in neighborhoods. And of course, streeteries are so popular, we imagine those will continue to happen. And then really importantly, like, how can we engage commercial corridors in neighborhoods so that small businesses will have an opportunity to offer maybe special goods or services during a particular weekend or weeks or even during the year. We really want to encourage that to be happening at the city level. And then, of course, there will be international and national, well, we know there'll be national sporting events. I can confirm for you that the Major League Baseball All-Star Game will be played at Citizens Bank Park on July 7th. And I believe you probably are aware that Philadelphia is one of the host cities competing to, or one of the cities competing to host some FIFA World Cup games as well in the summer of 2026. And we will find out about the success of that bid, I believe in April or May. So there will be monumental festivals, monumental experiences, a whole year of activity. And yet what we leave behind and how we mark this date and time as a people is most important of all. So Philadelphia has always played a leading role in every major milestone. Oops. Sorry. That's what I just did. Oh, I just pushed something. I don't know what that is. Hold on. There. So Philadelphia has always played a major role. Oh no, now you're gonna forget the pictures of me again. Sorry, bear with me. Sorry, just in case you wanted to recap on the presentation that's right there. Our role from past anniversaries began in 1876. So that started with the Centennial Exhibition in West Fairmount Park. And it was an unbelievable, massive, monumental experience for the country. A quarter of the population came to the Centennial District for the 6-month period of time. Inventions were all the rage at that point. It was the time, Philadelphia was known as the workshop of the world, and Memorial Hall is a built monument from that exhibition that then became the first art museum of the city, and of course now is housed at the Museum of Art. In 1926, the sesquicentennial also happened in Philadelphia. It happened in FDR Park. FDR Park was fully filled in and created because it was swampland at the time, so that it could serve again as a huge festival site. A monumental experience. And additionally, other monuments were created, such as the Benjamin Franklin Bridge, which was open to the public on July 1st, 1926. 1976 was less of a place-based experience in Philadelphia, but still we intentionally built and created monuments and institutions to mark that time. So the Mann Center was created, the African American Museum of Philadelphia was created, and then sculptures like the Love Sculpture and the Closman Sculpture were also created. So this time around for the 250th, Philadelphia 250 is really turning that legacy model on its head. And we are asking the public for ideas about what Philadelphia wants to leave behind for 2026. And we're doing so again at this grassroots level, which is we've just last week on February 16th launched an initiative called Leave a Legacy. And that is a public call for bold ideas and tangible solutions for positive and lasting impact in our neighborhoods. So the call is broad and wide, but we are asking for folks to focus on what we're referring to as social and civic infrastructure. And these are the essential assets, resources, and systems that have to be present in a neighborhood in order for neighborhoods to thrive, not merely survive. So we're looking for programs that, and the slide shows you some examples of things we might be suggesting you could consider. So ideas around sustainable, affordable housing that people can age in place in. I mean, I just showed you that slide of the relentless number of row homes in Philadelphia that are 100 or 150 years old and need massive upkeep. If you own one, you know that you're constantly taking care of it. So what are some innovative strategies about how to do that in an affordable way? Accessible public health programs. There could be something around public health. We know we're in the midst of a pandemic and we're here because of the innovation of vaccines. Is there something more on the ground and across the city that needs to be accelerated or scaled up? Perhaps there's something around the public realm, making sure our streets are clean, are safe, and are green. So and maybe something around entrepreneurship. We are really open to a breadth of projects, but we're hoping that these ideas will be something that's happening at a neighborhood level and ideally scalable across the city. So this is also an opportunity to scale up, accelerate a project that's already in existence. So it doesn't have to be an idea from scratch, and preferably it might be better if it actually already has some traction on it so that we can commit to getting it done. So if you have an idea or you know of an organization or a company that has a great project that could be considered as a legacy, we'd encourage you to consider applying. And I'll give you the link to that in 1 second. And just to wrap up, I just want to stress that the decisions and the investments that we make now will determine our future path and legacy. So 2026 is an opportunity to show how ordinary citizens can do extraordinary things with vision and commitment to help make 2026 the most inclusive and transformational milestone anniversary in our country's history. So let's make it monumental. Thank you. And then this is, I just want to put this up here while we're chatting before we go to Q&A and stuff. Just wanted to share with you the Leave a Legacy link. You can get that if you go to our website. It's philadelphia250.us. And another way to stay really in touch with us if you're not interested in submitting an idea, or if that's not something that you're interested in doing right now, a great way to follow what we're doing is to sign up for our newsletter. There's a call to action button at the bottom of the home screen. We send out, maybe once or twice a month, an update about what we're working on and opportunities to get involved. And as we do more calls for program ideas for actual activities that'll be happening in the year of 2026, that would be a great way to find out when that's happening as well. So I will stop sharing and turn it back over to you guys in terms of Q&A. And I just want to point out that I did not get into a lot of really specifics about things. So if you have more specific questions, I'm happy to answer those things as well. Oh, and Eric, I just realized Eric DeVera is on this call too. Eric is a colleague of mine. She's actually project manager of Leave a Legacy. So you can also ask her any questions you want. Or she could follow up with you also after this. So while we're waiting to figure out what's going on with the muting situation, I will see a question in the chat here from Andrew. Yes, there is a national organization. There's a national commission that's called America 250. And America 250 was established 2 years ago. And just to give you a little history on my organization, Philadelphia 250. Philadelphia 250 was created in 2011. And it was originally called USA 250 because it was the only organization in the country at the time that was even thinking about the 250th. It was created by Philadelphians in Philadelphia. And then that organization, the initial leaders of that were instrumental, frankly, in creating legislation at the federal level that President Barack Obama signed into law in 2016 that created the Federal Commission, which is now called America 250. And then in 2019, because the Federal Commission was up and running, USA 250 rebranded as Philadelphia 250, and we focused our mission in and around Philadelphia. And that's when I became the executive director, was to really build up Philadelphia's role in 2026, how the city was going to recognize 2026, and then how we're going to coordinate with the federal. So America 250 is the national organization, and there are state commissions as well. So there's a state commission called America 250 PA. So Alan, your question here about how can other citizens get involved? We probably starting in 2023 will start to do more community engagement and citizen participation. Right now, the call for ideas is one. There will be call for other programming opportunities and for small businesses to get involved. That will also happen likely in 2023. We are still in the conceptual stage of an idea of creating a set of ambassadors that would be really trusted. They're already identified trusted leaders in neighborhoods across the city that could start to help spread the word and meet with their community groups and understand what questions or concerns people have, so that we can develop programs and activities that will be responsive to those concerns and needs. And also, really we're very much committed to this idea of being a by the people, for all people experience. So even if there are events and activities that will be happening across the city, the point is to be beneficial to neighborhoods and to residents, not a burden. We're 100% going to avoid anything that happened like with the Pope or anything where people left town. Like that is not the idea. The idea is we want people to stay in town because this is for you, for and by you. And, you know, and that the tourism is just like an extra icing on the cake for things. We also we hired a diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility consultant who currently right now is leading a series of small talks and soon town halls where we are encouraging people to really grapple with and struggle with this commemoration. I try to be, I know I didn't do it as consistently today because I was talking about like celebrating some of the work we're doing, but I typically try to refer to this anniversary as a commemoration, right? We're recognizing this date in this moment in time. And also we know that women, enslaved people were intentionally left out of the Declaration of Independence, not to even mention indigenous folks and Native Americans who were, whose land was just completely taken from them. So we are embracing and really hoping to have deep, meaningful, consequential conversations. And as we develop our civic engagement program, we're working on like a toolkit for conversation guides and things like that to actually start to have those conversations. So we're leaning into that, the difficulty and the complexity of this commemoration as well.
Excellent, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually, I lived in Francisville when the Pope was in town. Many of my neighbors left town, so it was, you know, it's dispiriting to have that great event happen, and then but folks were around for a variety of reasons to experience it. So I'm glad you guys are thinking about even for, you know, not displacing folks or making sure folks want to stay in town when this occurs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I live off the Parkway, so I feel it very heavily every time there's an activity that happens in the city. What other questions do we have here?
We have a question from Rose. You answered, you just answered the first part, but I guess you can read it.
Yes, that would, Rose, your idea about a citywide program to encourage middle high school students to consider viable careers in the arts would qualify as a potential legacy project. Yes, we're looking at both potentially capital projects and social civic education programs. And if you want a little specific about how we're going to go through this process, we launched the call in February. It's an open call for submissions until May 20th. And then up to 16 semifinalist teams will be announced in June. And we have an 80-member task force of senior and emerging leaders from community, nonprofit, corporate, and university organizations that will be some of the participants in the selection of the semifinalists. And then the semifinalist teams will be participating in a accelerator or incubation program with us from August through November to really refine the project, to get a sense of resources that'll be needed, how to do outreach, if you need to clean up a business plan or scale up an initiative, identify the funding that you need. That'll all happen in that time period. And then at the end of the year, that cohort that participates as a semifinalist and the advisors will help select ideally up to 4 final legacy projects. And then Philadelphia 250 will help steward those 4 projects, mostly under Eric's guidance, for the next 4 years. And we'll help identify resources, we'll check in with them, make sure things are moving. And the idea is to have them developed or completed by 2026.
Danielle, you mentioned earlier in your talk that during, was it the bicentennial? there were, it was a time of inventions in Philadelphia.
Mhm.
Is there any, um, are we looking to encourage that outside of the submissions and the legacy project for 2026?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. One of the slides and details I didn't include in this talk because I didn't think it fit in as appropriately is a set of kind of themes that we're working with for 2026. So the idea is that we developed 4 themes or sets of values that are really organizing all of our programs. And one of those themes is called revolutionary actions. And that is, of course, inspired by Philadelphia's history of being a city of firsts and being innovative, not just in like tech and eds and meds and things that we're typically known for, but also in like civic and social action, and like what are the innovative either programs or initiatives or different activities that are happening around innovation that can be celebrated and can be part of the programming for 2026. So revolutionary actions is one of those program areas, which would be very much focused around innovation. And then I'll just mention the other 3 while we're at it. The other one is what we're calling shared prosperity, which is about really growth with equity and making sure that neighborhoods have what they need to thrive. So that's a lot of that is focused on like the call for ideas around the legacy projects. But there'll be other programs that we'll want to spotlight and highlight that would touch upon shared prosperity. Another theme or value is called people's histories, and that is intentionally about making sure that we're going to have programs that spotlight the diverse, inclusive, and undertold stories of Philadelphians, highlight the places that we probably walk by every day that we don't know what really happened there, that may have been erased from history, right, that need to be remembered and recognized. And then the 4th value or theme is called pursuit of happiness. And that is about making sure that it's really a way of celebrating all of the assets that Philadelphia has, that we all find our own pursuit of happiness and passions and joys from. And that can be things like sports or food, music, open space. It's the things that kind of make living in Philadelphia joyful. So those are the four values. And I think they've been very successful in how we've been developing them, because they do really encompass the identity of the city, the opportunity that the city presents for residents and visitors, and also I think goes to the heart of our history about being a place of diverse people, innovation, and a city of brotherly love. The shared prosperity part really comes from making sure that we are taking care of our own brothers and sisters.
Thank you, Danielle.
Yeah.
Does anyone, any other participants have questions this morning for Danielle?
I know it's a lot to take in, and it seems like really far away, and why are we talking about this now? But the reason it's important to talk about this now and get these things planned is obviously big, monumental, once in a lifetime things happen. You take planning. We started the legal legacy part as early as we could, knowing that like anything that's going to really get developed and implemented needs the longest runway as possible. So we're starting with legacies first. Then we'll move to the programming, and the civic engagement component will happen throughout it. And we're now 4 years away, so it's really not that far. And if you're doing anything on a capital scale, we're actually too late, frankly, and we're aware of that. But we're hoping that there will be some urgency around what we're doing, and that if there are opportunities and dollars and things like that, they'll come our way. And then Erica's being helpful here, and she just dropped into the chat our social media. So if you're not following us, we have a nice Instagram account and all that good stuff. I don't even know what they're called anymore. What are they called? Facebook, Twitter. See, I told you I was like 100 years old. I'm in charge. I am not in charge of social media, as I'm sure you can imagine. So you can follow us on social media. You can send us an email. My email is Danielle@Philadelphia250.us. If you have a question for Eric, hers is Eric@Philadelphia250.us. Reach us there.
Danielle, what are your plans for your birthday, if you don't mind sharing?
I actually do have a good birthday. I usually don't, but three of my closest friends from my childhood are coming, and we're having like a girls' weekend in Philadelphia. So
Nice.
yeah, so it should be fun. Thank you for asking that.
No problem.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I think that's it for questions in the chat. Just one. Yeah. So
Thank you, Rose. I know you've been sending in questions and saying nice things, so I appreciate that.
thank you for joining us this morning, Danielle. Good luck.
Thank you.
I'll probably join in some way. I don't know,
Yeah,
professionally or personally.
yes, please do. I mean,
I know I can finally unmute, so I just wanted to say thank you.
Okay.
Really great work. I don't know how you're going to pick just 16 programs. Hopefully you're going to be inundated with great ideas, I hope.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
And if you can help us spread the word, that would be great too. So if anyone you know or organizations that you work with.
Will do. I already have, actually.
Oh, good.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
And happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
All right,
With that,
everyone.
we'll close the program and we'll see everyone next month.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.